Welcome to Alberta Conservation Association's Harvest Your Own podcast, the resource for everything hunting, navigating through the field, the butcher shop, and the kitchen. Life is all about great food. Let's get started.
Welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Brad Fenson, an avid outdoor enthusiast who has worked as a freelance journalist, photographer, and public speaker for over 3 decades. I have hunted, fished, and foraged all my life and hope to share my passion for the outdoors. Along the way, I want to encourage everyone to harvest wild proteins and enjoy the satisfaction of providing the next meal for your family. Our goal is to educate, entertain, and inspire individuals to get outdoors and create a connection between food, health, and your future meals. Welcome to Harvest Your Own. I'd like to welcome Mike Uchikura to the show today to talk everything archery. Mike is a biologist with the Alberta Conservation Association and has worked there for years. I never knew that he was into archery the way that he is. I always saw him more of an upland bird hunter and knew him more on the work side, but I heard some tales of a big moose shot last year from one of their employees, and it happened to be Mike. So welcome to the show. Maybe you could introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about you and your background.
Yeah, no, thanks, Brad. It's great to be here on your show, and it's a unique opportunity for sure. Just a little bit about my background. So my name is Mike Uchikura. I've been with the Alberta Conservation Association for going on 13 years now, I think. So I've been here a little while, but I've always had a passion for hunting and fishing. I grew up on a farm. Spent a lot of time outdoors, and my career basically followed that route. And yeah, archery hunting is something I was always interested in, and I was kind of a late bloomer in it. I didn't pick it up until I was about 25, so just a few years ago. And yeah, and I will tell you, at that time, all the bells and whistles on the compound bows really attracted me to archery. I thought that was just really, really cool and slick, and I wanted to try it all out. And I eventually did get a compound bow, but then a good friend of mine introduced me to traditional archery, and he let me shoot some of his recurves and longbows, and that brought me back to when I was a little kid making bows out of just little poplar branches and using cattails as arrows.
I think we all did that.
Yeah, no kidding, eh? But the fun factor just went sky high using traditional gear. And eventually the compound bow kind of faded out of the picture. And as far as all my archery hunting now for about 15 years, it's been pretty much exclusively with the recurve. And this past season, I just picked up a longbow. Kind of wanted to make things even more difficult on myself, I guess. And I picked up the longbow, and yeah, that's what I actually hunted my moose with, and was successful. So that's a whole new story in itself.
Well, that's quite a feat in itself. I mean, lots of people go out and hunt moose with archery gear, and they're successful, but no one knows better than you the difference between a compound and a recurve and a longbow. They're very different tools, and they take a lot of different time in terms of mastering them. And I'd have to ask, like, how many hours do you think you practiced with the longbow before you actually went moose hunting?
Well, with the longbow this past season, I was pretty diligent about practicing almost every day for probably a good 6-7 months prior to my hunt. And by practicing, it's going to the outdoor range and shooting there. But I also have a target butt located in my back porch. So if I actually step back into my living room, shoot across the kitchen to my back porch, I have about 10 yards. And the reality is, though, even with a compound bow, shooting practice, you have to practice your form, all the principles of making an accurate shot. Whether you're shooting at 5 yards or 50 yards, the principles you have to practice are the same. So If I can't go outside, I pretty much shot inside my house on a daily basis as well. So it amounted to, I don't know how many hours, but yeah, traditional archery, it is a different game for sure. Of course, you don't have any mechanical aids to help you with your shot. That's the big difference with a recurve versus a compound or a longbow. And so you really have to be in the game mentally. You have to be able to process the flight of your arrow. You don't have any sight pins. I shoot instinctively, so I don't use any point of aim to try to get me to my arrow to my target. And so it really becomes truly instinctual as to where you have to hold when you're making a shot at whatever distance. Now, that being said, your shots do tend to be closer. You want them to be closer than with the compound. Of course, the margin of error increases the further you are away from your target. So, typically I'm quite confident out to 30 yards, and I prefer to be closer if I can. And that in itself is probably the most exciting challenge of using a recurve or a longbow is you have to try getting close. And that is very exciting. And whether you actually fling an arrow or not, just being that close to a deer or a moose or elk, it's a thrilling experience. So, the way I looked at it, the most bang for my buck, if I take a recurve, any day is a fun day. So that's how I pretty much came around to shooting traditional. It was just very, very, very fun for me, whether I got something or not.
I think it's kind of a natural progression nowadays for people to get into archery because it is pretty easy. And like you said, you can shoot it sometimes depending where you live, in your backyard or through your kitchen if your family allows it and obeys the signage that's up. But, a lot of people that haven't hunted maybe tried archery in school, or they're looking for a way to get out and try to harvest some protein. And a bow is a good option. There's no bang, there's no recoil, there's no special licensing required. So archery is very attractive to a lot of people that are getting into it, which is one of the main reasons why I wanted to talk to you today. There is a big difference in equipment, and I think you're providing a lot of information to help people sort of set their sights on things. A compound bow, of course, has a lot. You can draw a lot more weight with it. A lot of bows, you need 40 pounds minimum for hunting, but with the modern equipment to shoot even an elk or something with a 50-pound compound bow is quite achievable. So it's very attractive, and also when you draw them, there's a tremendous amount of let off on the weight you hold, up to 80%, sometimes even a little bit higher. And maybe I could get you to explain that to people, just the difference between the three different styles of bow that you've used in your life, and right up to the longbow that you harvested your moose with last year.
Sure. So obviously, if you're to look at all three different bows, if you got a compound, a recurve, and a longbow, the compound, of course, it has cams on the ends of each limb, and those cams they look like pulleys. So when you draw back your bow, that's what gives you a lot of your energy. But the design of the cams also gives you that let off that you were talking about. So when you come to full draw, the design of the cams takes a lot of that pressure off, and you can hold that full draw for quite some time. And of course, that is very advantageous when an animal's coming into range. You can wait until that deer goes behind a tree or something, draw your bow, and then hold it until an opportune time that it turns broadside, and you can settle the pin where it needs to be, and you can really trigger off your release, which I'd say most compound bow shooters are doing these days, is using some kind of release mechanism that attaches to your wrist, hooks onto the bowstring, and so when you pull it back, you have an actual trigger to touch off that's going to release your string and your arrow. So there's no doubt about it, a compound bow is a very efficient tool, especially for hunting. And I think we're seeing a lot of people being successful in hunting big game, but not only big game, but you can use it for small game as well. So a lot of grouse have been shot with compound bows, and once again, very efficient. That let off is probably one of the biggest differences in feel when it comes to comparing that to, say, a recurve. So a recurve bow, there are no cams or pulleys. It's just basically a bow with the limb tips that recurve out. And by definition, the difference between a recurve and a longbow is that on a longbow, the limbs are, they don't recurve out at the tips. So there's no part of the string that actually touches the limb on a longbow. And some advantages to that, it does make the bow quieter than a recurve. On a recurve, when you release the string, there's a portion of the string that does touch the bent portions of the limbs, and it does create a bit of a slap noise. And there are ways to deal with it with string silencers and whatnot. But the recurve is slightly faster by design compared to the longbow, and a little bit easier to shoot because of that. But both the recurve and the longbow, there is no let off, of course. So you have to get a bow that's set at a poundage that you can handle comfortably. And that's probably one of the biggest things I've seen, biggest mistakes I've seen by people going to a recurve or a longbow is they figure, oh, my compound, I was pulling 60 pounds, so I'm going to get a recurve that pulls 60 pounds. But when you don't have let off to aid you at full draw, trying to become accurate and hold your body steady while you're pulling back 60 pounds with no let off, it can create a lot of bad habits, such as bad form, not coming to full anchor, not being able to be steady on the shot, and all those types of things. So the recurve and the longbow are definitely much different than a compound bow. And my suggestion is that anyone wanting to try traditional archery, there's no harm in just you can pick up a cheap bow. Sometimes you can find a used bow for $100 and have it pulling only 30, 35 pounds, just so you get to practice your form and become comfortable knowing how it feels when you shoot these bows correctly, and then eventually graduate up to a heavier poundage bow that you could use for hunting. But I do see a lot of people starting out with very heavy poundage bows, and I know through experience that could be a downfall. I started out with a 60-pound bow, and I think for the first year, I don't think I ever really came to full draw, and I picked up a lot of bad habits. And later on in my archery career, I started to, of course, research and gain more experience on what proper technique is. And yeah, so I actually did buy some bows that pulled less poundage just so I can start practicing the proper form and whatnot. And so I kind of went backwards a little bit in order to go forwards. But I wouldn't change anything. The whole experience, it was just pure fun. When I first picked up a recurve bow, you talked about how many hours of practice. Well, the first year I picked up a recurve bow, I think I used up almost 2 months of banked overtime, holiday time that I had at work. This is prior to ACA at my other job. Anyway, I had about 2 months of banked overtime, and I used all of it at the archery store shooting my bow. So, but the practice and the repetition is something that I think is very necessary for your mind to become connected with your shot. That repetition is very important, I think.
Absolutely. It creates that consistency, and you make some good points. The compound bow with the cams and the let off, you can pull huge weight, hold it, concentrate on your aiming. A release makes this more consistent. It takes that human factor out of it. I started archery when there was no release, and we all shot fingers with finger tabs, and shooting traditionally, you understand this, but a lot of people don't because they've never shot it. But the way you release that string off your fingertips, it has to be the same every single time. And it's even though you think it would be easy, and even though you've shot thousands of arrows, you can still easily make a mistake. So practice is key. And, what I'm hearing from you is that archery just isn't something for hunting. It's a passion. It's a year-round hobby. It's I'm guessing you have some friends or family that enjoy it as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. When I moved to Lethbridge, of course, there's a fairly large archery community already here in Lethbridge, and at the time there's a couple different archery clubs, and I joined one of them, and that's when I first really got into archery. And I tell you, just like I guess any sports club or whatever, the archery community here was close knit. There's a lot of passionate people. Kind of a broad range of archers as well. There were some that were more target and competition oriented, and some incredible shooters from Southern Alberta, by the way, all the way to international level shooters. And being able to talk to them, and also to talk to people that were more hunting oriented with archery gear. It was just a pure pleasure to be part of that community. And I guess I've been involved with these local clubs for over 20 years now. And there's a lot of community events that these clubs put on. They definitely promote youth involvement, and of course how to shoot archery and use the gear safely, and proper etiquette and all that kind of stuff. It's been great. It's been an incredible journey being involved in this archery world here in Southern Alberta, that's for sure.
You bring up a good point. The archers are very passionate people, and you're fortunate to live in Lethbridge where there is an active community, but I see the same things everywhere in Alberta, whether you live in Edmonton, Sherwood Park, Grand Prairie, Fort McMurray. All of them have very active archery communities. There's clubs that are out there. There's shops, and as you were saying, archers are the first one that want to share their passion, and there's lots of people that will teach you how to do it and lend you some equipment, get you started. Lots of the shops actually rent equipment if you wanted to just go in and try it for a day, go in with a friend. There's lots of ways to get a bow in your hand and to see what you like. And hopefully, we're providing some information where people won't have to take steps backwards and buy a 60-pound recurve and then go maybe 50, 45, 40 to get started for a hunting bow. But the information you provided on that, it's no different than going to a gym. You're training your body to be able to draw that amount of weight and hold it. And even though some of us think we're like Superman and can just pull a 60-pound bow and hold it, it's more than a challenge that what most people would believe or understand until they actually did it. All your points are very good. And the fact that the archery community is so welcoming anywhere in our province, I think we're truly blessed. And anyone that's looking to get into archery, it's a great place to start.
You betcha. I think you hit the nail on the head. Like as far as getting involved in archery, like you said, so many of the communities here in Alberta have such a well-established archery community. I think we try and make it as easy as possible for someone that knows nothing about archery to get into archery. And then, as far as renting equipment or providing advice, it doesn't have to be a costly venture to get involved. That's for sure. Even whether it's a compound or a recurve, just to get started, you can do so without spending a whole bunch of money. And that's the great thing about it. Like I say, I think, one of my first recurves, I literally bought for $100 off a friend of mine. And granted, I think arrows and everything was a lot cheaper back when I started, but really for a couple $100, I got set up with a bow and a dozen arrows and finger gloves. And the wonderful thing about traditional archery, that's about all you need. But not only that, but I think the mentorship, it's definitely available for people that are wanting it. And I was fortunate to have mentors as well. There's lots of people more than happy to provide advice and tips. And the great thing about archery is that, for the first little while, there's a lot of people that all they want to do is go to the range and fling arrows. You get to watch an arrow fly. It's really fun. They're not thinking about hunting or anything. But I will tell you, I've seen more people get involved with archery. They weren't hunters. They just wanted to try shooting a bow because it looked fun. And yeah, after a few years, and especially hearing all these hunting stories and being incorporated into this community of hunters, they decided to actually give it a try. So I think that's another plus with all these active clubs around the province. It's a great way to introduce people to hunting. And, you don't have to be thinking about chasing an elk or a moose or something with a bow right away. A lot of people have started off becoming proficient with their archery gear, and then they go try shoot a rough grouse or something. It's not intimidating at all. And I've seen a natural progression in a lot of people where, they start out with some small game and they have fun with it. And the more confident they get, they move up to larger animals like deer and then to elk. And I've got to see this cycle play out many times. It's great.
It's funny, the cycle you described, because I've been in archery for years. I love it. But I've got my whole family into it. My wife, Steph, has a bow and shoots, and my brother, and I believe all of them started off, shot targets, shoot, and they just got hooked. They didn't want to quit. It gets people off the couch. It gets them outside. It gets them engaged in something that's fun, interactive. You can get the whole family involved. But I think every one of them, if I am correct, shot like a rough grouse first. And it was such a thrill for them. It sort of led to like, oh, what could I do next? And it's not easy. It's not just a matter of walking up to one, drawing a bow and shooting it. There's a lot of things to practice and prepare for. And even stalking within range and not having them fly off is part of the fun. So there's several different steps. And, you bring up good points about equipment. You go to a archery shop right now and look at some of the bows hanging on the shelf, and they're $1,800, $2,000. Yeah. Harvest Your Own actually has some articles about how to pick a bow and how to, find a used bow and where, what do you need to get started. So there's some great articles there. And of course, the information you've provided is hopefully got some people thinking about, hey, that sounds like a great idea. I could grab my brother or my kids and head out to the range and try some of this stuff. It would be a great way to introduce them. And like I said, get off the couch and get outdoors. It's been a strange year with COVID, and to have something to get outside and do on a regular basis it clears your mind. It's life-changing right now.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. I think, in a lot of our outdoor activities, especially this past year with COVID, we've seen I think everywhere we've seen a spike of participants, in all kinds of outdoor activities, whether it's hiking or fishing and definitely hunting as well. I think we're way above the annual average for all the licenses that the province sells, and for fishing and hunting. And, and I think there are more and more people getting involved in archery and the shooting sports because of that. And so, I think it's a good resource for people to tap into. I think it's beneficial for, for your mind and even physically as well. It is something that gets you out for sure. And like I say, it's a low pressure activity. You're not, some people I think get intimidated when, they hear stories of all these backcountry hunts and stuff with archery gear. Well, you don't have to do that when you first start out.
You don't have to do that 10 years after. You never have to do it if you don't want to.
Well, yeah, exactly. It is what makes you happy. And like I say, I see a lot of people that just enjoy shooting their bow. They come out to the outdoor range. Here in Lethbridge, we have two outdoor ranges, the Lethbridge Fish and Game, and also Southern Alberta Bow Hunters Association. And there's a lot of club members that love just coming outside. It's an activity you do outside when the weather's nice, and it's nice to come to a range where there's targets set up. And both clubs, we also set up 3D targets on our outdoor range. And I will tell you, there's something about 3D targets. Everything from life-size elk to little skunks and raccoons. The kids just love that. They love shooting 3D targets, and that's, they might not do anything more than just come to the range and shoot, but that's the option that archery does provide. If they get you outside and it's something you enjoy, it's a great resource to tap into, and the clubs do provide that. But on that note, 3D archery is definitely something that has been very big in this province for quite some time. And you want to see some good shooters, I tell you, just even go and observe a 3D archery shoot. And a lot of times you can see some incredible shooters make some phenomenal shots, and it's just fun just to even be a spectator.
It is. There's lots of different ways to get engaged in archery, and I happen to really enjoy the 3D as well. I find that it's the best way to train for actual hunting situations. And we're lucky we're out in the country, but our bottom yard here, I think we've got close to 20 targets out. So we've got different butts that we've made, and we've got a bunch of life size. There's turkeys and stuff, and our girls are only 3 years old, but we have bows that they get out there, and of course we're helping them draw and stuff, but they just love, once you start, like, they don't want to quit.
I think that is one of the fun things about archery. You just take it back to the very essential. It is fun just to watch your arrow fly through the air, and when it hits the target that you want it to hit, it's just an amazing feeling when you can get that visual. And I think, honestly, that's why a lot of people love archery, is that you can actually see your arrow fly through the air from the starting point to end point. And there's an appeal to that, and I think that's why a lot of people love archery, is just because you can watch the arrow fly. It's fun.
Absolutely. There's satisfaction in success, basically. When you see your arrow go where your eye wants it to, that you've done it right. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't take much practice and training to get there. And that's the other thing. It's not going to take you 6 months to become proficient. If you're out there on a regular basis, you'll be amazed at how quickly you pick it up and learn it and embrace it. Like
for sure.
Becomes a passion real quick.
This podcast is produced for Harvest Your Own, a program dedicated to those who want to reconnect with food and health through their experiences outdoors. HarvestYourOwn.ca is a resource for individuals to learn more about hunting and the outdoors. There's information to get you started and ensure that your compass stays pointed in the right direction to be successful. Where's your next meal coming from?
Now, when we started the show, you mentioned that you like to get within 30 yards of a critter with your longbow. And I stopped for a second because, I've been an archer for years, and I've shot everything from bighorn sheep to elk and moose, and I still like to be within 30 yards with my compound bow. So when you said that, I'm like, man, this guy has spent a lot of time practicing, because if you're proficient with your longbow with 30 yards, that's an accomplishment.
Well, I throw out 30 yards. They're kind of an average. The interesting thing about shooting traditional gear and shooting instinctively, I think, to be honest, it really does depend on the day and how you are feeling when you're out there shooting, as to how far you feel confident. It's such a mental game when you're relying on basically just your muscle memory and your visual and your body making the shot. It's strange. There's some days when I feel off, and let's say I'm at the archery range and I'm just practicing. There's some days where I will not shoot at 30 yards because, for whatever reason, my head's not in the game and I'm struggling at 20 yards. And then there's other days where I'm focused, I'm feeling good, and I can be accurate out to 40 yards. So 30 yards is like I say, is just an average. I like to be closer. I think the equipment is most effective, in that 20 to 25 yard range. But it also does present a huge challenge as well. The closer you are to an animal, the less you can get away with when it comes to movement, noise, and all that kind of thing.
Everything.
And and whether it's a traditional gear or a compound bow, that a lot of shot opportunities have been ruined just at that point of drawing your bow. And that movement itself, a lot of times the animal picks up on it, boom, they're gone, and you just spent 3 hours stalking into 20 yards, and everything goes down the pipe when you draw your bow, and that happens time and time again. Now with the traditional gear, the difficulty is because you're not holding your bow at full draw very long. In fact, I come to full draw and I might hold it there for literally just half a second. I'm aiming as I'm drawing my bow, so when I come to full draw, I should be on target where I want to be, and there's no reason to really hold it at full draw anymore. So it's a very quick shot sequence, and but I have to do that when I'm confident that the deer or elk or whatever isn't actually going to pick up that movement. The advantage with the compound bow is you can come to full draw at an opportune time for maybe up to 30 seconds before the shot opportunity actually presents itself, right? So
absolutely.
Yeah, so with the recurve or the longbow, it is challenging. You got to get in close to make an effective, ethical shot, and you have all this motion that you have to do to get your shot on the way and try not to be detected by the deer or whatever animal you're chasing. And I could. Here's the thing too is you have to accept the fact that you're going to miss sometimes.
That happens to everybody. Yeah, if you don't miss, you either don't hunt much or you're a good storyteller.
Well, that's the thing, right? And everyone's used to seeing all the pictures of a certain person posing with a lot of animals, and I think the real honest hunters out there, they won't hesitate to tell you, well, yeah, here's a picture of all the animals I've actually gotten, but there's a lot of failed stalks and missed shots and heartaches that came in between those animals, right?
Oh, so, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure we could probably spend all day talking about those heartbreak stories.
Yes.
This podcast was made possible by Alberta Conservation Association and the Harvest Your Own community. If you're interested in harvesting your own food, there's a comprehensive collection of information to gain insight and knowledge. Head to the field, harvest your own protein, prepare it, and taste the results. HarvestYourOwn.ca is a library of information from getting started and geared up to processing, butchering, and cooking wild game to make the connection between health and food.
We've probably kept our listeners in suspense here. I know that someone's listening and saying, "Tell me about the moose."
Oh, yeah. Well, I will tell you that to go hunting for a moose with traditional gear, it's been a dream of mine for a long time. A moose is a big animal, and to think that with a simple stick and string and having to get into close range and hopefully get off a good arrow and to bring down such a big critter like a moose with traditional gear, that's always been a dream of mine for a long, long time. And I'll be honest, I've just never hunted moose a whole lot. The places that I wanted to hunt, there's long waits between draws. And but anyways, as it turned out, I had 10 years of priority to burn up, and I drew in a zone in central Alberta. And I was lucky. I had a friend up there that knew the area well and loved to hunt moose, and he basically told me, yeah, get your butt up here and we'll go chase a moose. So I put my draw in, and that was successful for the 2020 season. I got drawn for a bull moose, and of course, that's when the practice really started in earnest. I really wanted to make this happen with a longbow, and practice all spring and summer and into the fall. And when I finally got up to central Alberta, it was for first of all, the amount of moose that we'd see on a daily basis was just incredible. I've never seen so many moose in my life. And I got up there and we set up camp, which was pretty plush all in itself. My buddy had a holiday trailer set up on some of their own family land, and a very comfortable camp. And anyways, the moose hunting from day one, it just blew my mind. I never thought the technique that my buddy was suggesting would work as good as it did. And it's a very simple technique of, he had a cutout of made out of plywood, some moose antlers that he had fashioned up, just a modest size set of antlers, and this is all made out of just a sheet of plywood. And he's telling me all we got to do is walk straight in on these bulls. And he was confident with the timing of the fall. He wanted to hit the pre-rut stage, and he said that's when they're most susceptible to using this technique. The bulls are they're not really hooked up with the gals yet. The bulls are just roaming around a lot and challenging other bulls all the time, and it's the time to use the old wooden antler technique. And from day one, it was just incredible. The first day we walked right into about 17 yards of a young bull. We could have got closer. That was the crazy thing about it all. As soon as we started walking in, it was so funny to watch this little bull all of a sudden posture up, turn a little bit broadside, start swaying his head back and forth. And I've never experienced any animal that allows you to do that. You know, I've hunted elk in the rut. You can decoy him and call him in, but as soon as that bull sees you, it's gone.
Game over.
Same thing with deer. Yeah, exactly. Deer, same thing. You can call them in, rattle them in during the rut, but typically if they see you, they're gone. Well, here's this huge animal, a moose, and you can walk right into it. You're in full view, and yet it doesn't do anything but want to come closer to you. So it was an incredible experience. But the first day we walked into 17 yards. Like I say, we could have got closer, but my buddy told me, it's just a small bull. We'll pass on this one. And I kind of wanted to remind him, do you see this bow I have in my hand? I'm thinking any opportunity should be a good opportunity, but he was confident we could make it work with a bigger bull. Day 2 comes around, and we got into some incredible moose action in a cornfield. I don't know how many moose were in that cornfield, but they were making all kinds of noises, cows and bulls, and we just couldn't get them to come out of the corn. And the sun's going down, it's getting late, and we're thinking, we'll come back and try again tomorrow. And lo and behold, as we turn around, 30 yards just outside the corn, here's another young bull just standing there looking at us. And we're like, okay, let's play with this one. So my buddy got out his antlers, and we're walking in towards this bull. Well, we got in within 10 yards of this bull, and it was a small bull, and he was still trying to act all tough, and he's swaying his head back and forth and posturing and whatnot. It was incredible just to see this behavior at that close range. And but anyway, my buddy wanted to pass on that one too, and I'll be honest, I'm not too concerned about antler size. The whole experience of flinging an arrow at a moose would have been good enough for me, but he decided we should pass on that one too. But it was still just incredible to watch the behavior of these critters at such close range. And anyway, day 3 comes around, and once again we're seeing moose all over, and we finally picked one out that we wanted to make a play on. And it was really interesting. This bull, we saw it in a willow patch down in this meadow, and so we decided we'll try a stalk on him. We came into him. We're probably about 100 yards away when the bull actually saw us. It was in a bit of a willow patch. And I tell you, as soon as this bull, and it was a shooter bull, and as soon as that bull saw the wooden antlers my buddy's holding up, that thing just started raking the willow bushes, and it started putting on a show. And my buddy turns to me and says, okay, this one's going to play. And oddly enough, the 2 days prior with the two smaller bulls, because I knew my buddy didn't want me to shoot those ones. I was cool as a cucumber. You know, it was just a cool experience. Oh, look at these bulls. We're really close. It's all incredible and fun. But when my buddy turned to me on this shooter bull and tells me, okay, this one's going to play, I will tell you, the adrenaline hit me like a freight truck. It was incredible. Now it was getting very real. And we got into under 30 yards, and we're still getting in closer. And it was all I can do. And, you know, I've been hunting a long time now. And I couldn't believe how the rush was hitting me this time. It was all I can do to control myself, to keep everything steady so I can actually draw my bow without the arrow falling off the rest. And we got into under 20 yards to this bull. And I knew in my heart of hearts I could make that shot all day. And that's not to say things can't go wrong, but for everything that could have gone wrong, everything went right. I made a perfect shot on this bull. It ran probably about 75 yards, and then it tipped over. It actually died in less than 20 seconds.
Wow.
And that's it was incredible. When I think I was holding my breath until that animal tipped over, but when it did, that's when I let the adrenaline just wash all over me, and I couldn't even talk for probably 3 minutes afterwards.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting stuff. It's hard to explain that euphoria that you feel, and the rush of excitement. It actually does flow through your veins.
It does, and I tell you, it's great to have a good hunting partner. My buddy Ed up there, he loves just moose hunting. He doesn't have to be the shooter. He just loves to chase moose, and I will tell you, I think he was just as excited as I was.
Oh, I'll guarantee it. Yeah, I love being along for moose as well. I had my brother out last year. He shot his first one, and it was probably more exciting than the last moose I shot myself. So,
yeah, and there's no doubt about it. Like, this wasn't a huge bull moose. It was just a mature bull moose. But you know, all moose are big.
Yeah, you really find out how big they are when you go to try to eat it all.
Well, that's the thing, and when we walked up to my bull, and when you start handling a bull to field dress it and whatnot, that's when you truly do realize how big they are. You know, to lift the leg up and all that type of thing. It's a lot different than a deer, that's for sure.
Yeah,
and
it's definitely work.
But I will tell you, it was very comforting for me the way this all went down. We were able to get to it. Well, the animal died right away, nice and quick. We were able to get to it right away. It was cool outside. And the thing going through my mind at that point was everything's going perfect as far as keeping the meat in a good condition. And we weren't rushed or anything. So the butchering, everything was done very clean. And that thing filled up my big freezer of mine. And I tell you, there's nothing more satisfying. And the thing is, he's a really good eating moose too. I have eaten some moose from friends and whatnot where, they can be pretty chewy sometimes, just depending on what kind of bull they take. But this one is just prime eating, tender, and it tastes great. I've used them in every kind of recipe I can think of. And he's going to last me until hopefully next September when I get out again. So
that's
it's
awesome.
a great feeling. Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you for sharing your story, because your history within archery is a lesson in itself. And I'm sure you're inspiring people to get out and try it and take it up. And, you know, when you talk about using a very traditional bow to harvest a moose and how effective it is, it will eliminate any doubt that people have that it is a very effective way of taking game and filling your freezer. And you made the point that, you know, a moose does fill your freezer.
Yeah, it definitely does. And I think a lot of people, they might be a little bit intimidated about using traditional gear to go hunting. But like anything, it just comes down to building your confidence through practice. And and not to mention being honest with yourself too. You have to understand your skill level. I've talked to people that are very honest. They say, you know what, I'm not confident shooting my recurve out to 20 yards. I'm just not consistent enough. And there's one fellow in particular, he says because of that, he limits his shots to 10-yard shots.
Right.
He says, a deer at 10 yards, I know I can hit. And he has harvested deer by being that disciplined and, taking that ethical shot that he knows he's comfortable with. And, but see, that's the thing, right? If your goal is strictly to just get trophy animals, or you want to fill your freezer every year, well, I don't know if traditional gear is the best thing to start off with, but I will tell you the fun factor, not to mention the learning experience. I think you learn so much more about your quarry when you have to continually get in really close to them. So the amount of learning I went through on animal behavior and how to become a more effective hunter, it skyrocketed when I started hunting with a recurve bow. I was just a rifle hunter before that, and it wasn't hard to harvest a deer with a rifle. But when I started bow hunting, holy smokes, as far as how observant you have to be to every little movement of the animal and how you interpret that to allow you to make your move and get in closer. That educational experience was incredible. But that's part of the enjoyment, right?
Absolutely. Hunting is,
so like I say,
hunting is practice. It's no different than shooting your bow to become comfortable with it. And every time you see an animal stalk an animal or watch their behavior, you learn something. And if you're paying attention, it all comes together and makes you more efficient and more successful on a regular basis.
Yeah, and I will tell you, when it does happen and you do harvest your first big game animal, well, whether it's compound or traditional, it doesn't matter. But there's no other feeling. It's a feeling of true accomplishment, and that it becomes addictive that way, right? So
absolutely,
makes you try harder. Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing your story with us, Mike, and like I said, inspiring people to get out and try archery. Go to one of your local shops or join one of the clubs or find somebody that's shooting a bow, and they'll take you out and let you try stuff. It's a great way to get into the outdoors. It's a great way to introduce yourself to hunting and build the skills and the knowledge that you need. So on behalf of Harvest Your Own, thank you very much.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure, Brad. Anytime.
We hope to inspire people to reconnect with nature and appreciate where your food comes from by harvesting your own. For more information on getting started or to learn specifics about the Field to Fork experience, visit harvestyourown.ca and follow on Facebook and Instagram. Check back often for new material, recipes, and videos that are posted regularly. Please subscribe to Harvest Your Own podcast and take the time to rate and review the show to help us build a dedicated core of passionate hunters as our regular audience. Until next time, embrace the outdoors and all it has to offer. Thanks for joining us.